welcome back to the Whatnauts review show number 183. Each week here on the review show, we have a different story to talk about. It could be a comic, could be a movie, an anime, manga, who knows. We read it, we watch it, we come back, and we discuss it here on the podcast. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined, as always, by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa,
Hello.
How's it going?
It's been going fine. I'm getting ready for the Christmas season. Next week, when you talk to me, I might have my little trees up back there in my backdrop.
I should do that too. I think I said that last year, that I was like, you know what? I should put some decorations up. And then I never did. But my roommate just put up our Christmas tree like last night. So it is officially starting to feel like Christmas here at the Kyle household. I guess it's not my household, but you know. Good stuff. Well, let's see. My week has been okay. I had my girlfriend here this whole week, so we had a lot of fun. We did not get to do the captain's log because of that. I was spending all my time with my girlfriend. We tried to go to a bacon festival here in Richmond. It was a lot less bacon than I was expecting.
What?
Very disappointed in the bacon fest. I think there was supposed to be like inclement weather, like it was supposed to storm or something, and so a lot of the vendors canceled. But we did end up walking away with 2 bags of popcorn that I bought at this vendor. One tasted like apple pie, and it was really good. And then another one tasted like a loaded baked potato, and those were phenomenal.
Oh,
that was
nice.
Great. Yeah, they were so good. So good. So we got some gourmet artisanal popcorn. Artisanal.
Nice.
Good stuff, indeed. Melissa, this week we are here to talk about some comics. I felt this would be a good week to go back to some super heroing and read some it's been a good while. Old-fashioned comics. Yeah. So I pitched something from Marvel, something from DC, as well as something from Valiant Comics. And you decided to go with the choice from DC, which was Flashpoint. This is the, I don't know what year was it, like 2011-ish? Let me open up this thing and see here when it was. October 2013 is the digital release date, but that might be the collected volume. So it's around that time, around like 2012-ish is when this came out. This is a 5-issue event that DC Comics put on right before they launched the New 52. This was kind of the event that bridged the gap from their older continuity into their new initiative, the New 52, which they were starting. And right around this time is when I started reading DC Comics. Because I went to college in 2009, and that's when I started picking up stuff, but I wasn't buying many DC titles because I knew that this is what they were leading up to. So I was just like, well, I'm just gonna wait till this whole new continuity thing starts. So I started there, but this is nostalgic in a way. Was like, I remember this. This is back when I first started to read comics. So there we go. But you picked this one. So what about this book drew you to Flashpoint?
I know that it is a major event in modern comics, and I wanted to know if I could read this and recognize that it was a major event if I wasn't told. I wanted to know, me as an outsider, like I basically know the DC characters. I've read a handful of comics, but I didn't know if I'd read anything in like this continuity or not. I just wanted to see how I would find it as an outsider.
Okay.
And I know that it's a big inspiration point for the upcoming Flash movie, so I wanted to have that background knowledge.
Yeah, that as well. We haven't really read any of the Flash here on the show, which is why I kind of wanted to include this one in there. One, it was an event book. I was like, well, why not put an event book in there, right? Two, it kind of centers around the Flash, kind of. He is basically the main character. Of this book. And yeah, it was just something that I was like, I think we should check this one out to have some discussion on this and to see where my head is at from what I know about the comics and what I know happened before and after this whole thing. And then you on the opposite side, not necessarily knowing any of that stuff and what you thought of the book. So there you go. So yeah, let me pull this info back up here so we can list off a few flash facts about this book. Flashpoint, like we said, came out in October of 2013. It's written by Geoff Johns with art by Andy Kubert. And it stars the Flash, as we mentioned. All of a sudden, he kind of wakes up in a world that he doesn't really recognize. He is like, okay, things have changed here. My mom is alive, first of all, is kind of the big thing. And he very quickly finds out that something has happened, something has gone wrong, and he very quickly identifies, this is the doing of the Reverse Flash, my mortal enemy, my arch nemesis, the Reverse Flash. And so
Professor Zoom,
indeed, yeah. And he goes around trying to gather what few heroes he recognizes to try and convince them to kind of form a pseudo Justice League to stop the Reverse Flash. However, whatever change happened in the timeline, it changed so much that now Aquaman and Wonder Woman are basically warring for control of the Earth. I think New Themyscira is in London or stuff like that. Aquaman has drowned out a bunch of the Earth, and it's kind of like this post-apocalyptic DC universe. I mean, I not totally
they're over in Europe.
Part, yes. Yeah.
It's like Aquaman's like, I'm just gonna completely put Venice underwater now, and then we'll have it, and we'll paddle each other around in little gondolas for fun when we're not at war. Yeah.
So it's kind of in a ways a neat alternate reality to see all these differences of oh man, Wonder Woman did what? She killed who? What happened here? And yeah, I think one of the most notable ones is Batman, which we'll get to when we get into spoilers and stuff like that. But Melissa, I want to turn to you. What did you think of Flashpoint now that we've read this event?
It was confusing at times. There were plenty of characters introduced who I didn't know who they were. Some of which I enjoyed meeting for the first time. I love Element Woman. I watched the animated version and I was so disappointed that she wasn't in it. I hope I get to see Element Woman on a screen at some time. But it's a good emotional.
Familiar with her.
I didn't know her either. She's just a lady
with
purple hair. She turns into different elements. She's got a leg made out of wood and a leg made out of rock, and one of her arms is vapor or something. And she's just super friendly. She's excited to be there. She's like, as long as I'm part of a team, I feel included. I'm happy. Let's go. What are we doing? It's a good emotional story for the Flash. It was nice to get to spend that time with him. I love pro-mom superhero stories. That's a trend I enjoy to see. Even if it's pro-mom in a tragic way, like my mom died, I want to see if I can get her back.
Right. Yeah, which is
just important mom figures.
In important plot point in the Flash's story is that his mom is murdered, and it's his father who is put in jail as the convicted suspect, but he knows it's not true. Like, he knows that his father did not murder his mom, and so that's how he like joins the police force as a forensic scientist to prove that his father did not do that. And I guess down the road, he figures out that it was Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash, who was the one that murdered his mom, that traveled back in time to murder his mom, and did all of that stuff. And he wakes up in this alternate reality that is the one where his mom still exists. And more things have gone bad as a result. So yeah, it's a wild alternate reality, but at the same time, it's also not an alternate. Like, it is, but it isn't. It's just like, because I'm looking here on Comixology, right? And they say, not a dream, not an imaginary story, not an else world. This is Flash fact. Like, I guess their point is like they weren't selling this as like, hey, it's just a alternate reality, what if this happened? But it's like, hey, no, this is happening in the real timeline. How did it get to be this thing here? So yeah, it was interesting in that way. But I would agree, confusing book, especially if you don't know much. Like, this I don't feel like is a good jumping on point.
Not at all.
I think if you're checking out comics or interested in the upcoming movie and want some places to start, this might be on the list of things you should check out as reference material, but I don't think this is a good place to start if you're just getting into comics, or if you are like, who is the Flash? I should check out some things about him. This is not the place to be here.
I don't think it's good for a Comics 101 reader, but maybe like Comics 102, or like I've read, I guess I've read like some older Batman stories. Like, I've read Year One and The Dark Knight Returns. Like, I have read some DC comics, but I feel like they're of a separate time, of a separate area of the entire DC world that didn't have a lot of bearing on me understanding this book. But I've seen all the movies, like, not Aquaman. I haven't gotten Aquaman yet, but you see him in Justice League. If you're like me and you're like, I've seen all these people, I've never read them before, you'll do okay with this. There's better starting points, but you've got like half of what you need, and you'll figure the rest out. You'll learn about Element Woman.
Yeah, which is always kind of my advice too for jumping in on reading comics. You're gonna have to do it somewhere, so it's okay if you don't understand all of the stuff at first. If you treat this as a jumping off point, and then you go, for example, into the New 52 and all of that stuff, like, you will eventually come to understand all of the stuff and who the players are and things like that. But yeah, personally, I was interested in this book. I'm on the fence about this book. I am a huge like post-crisis DC Comics era fan, and that continuity started in like 85-ish when Crisis hit, and then continued until this book. Technically, but yeah, this is the book that basically ended it, and DC Comics was basically going to be like, okay, we are starting all from issue ones. You won't need to know big long backstories of all these characters and stuff. We're just relaunching the entire DC universe. And it seemed like a smart idea. This was like, okay, this could be interesting, because I know how overwhelming comics can be. And then once they started announcing the books and they started coming out, it just became clear very quickly that they didn't really know what they were doing or the direction that they really wanted to go with these books, and some of the choices like undid things about the characters that we came to love but didn't necessarily need to see those things rehashed in comics. I can give examples if you'd like, but I'll spare you the details now. But yeah, it was one of those things that everyone was just like, what? Like, why? What's happening here? Like, no one knows. And it was a big mess, and it did not work out. But yeah, that was kind of where I started, and I started picking up things, and started picking up Batman and Detective Comics, The Flash and Superman and all sorts of stuff. So there you go. Do you have any other things that you want to add to like spoiler-free thoughts before we dive into spoilers and stuff here?
I'm not going to say what it is ahead of the spoiler wall, but I do want to say the Superman part of this book is my favorite part. I'm excited to talk about it.
It's an interesting one indeed. So with that, we will take a short break to do some housekeeping, and when we get back, we will get into our spoiler territory. So we will be right back. We put a lot of hard work into the shows that we make, and yes, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and we'd love it if you would check them all out. You can find out more information on our website at thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. If you want to support what we do here at The Whatnauts, patreon.com/The Whatnauts is the best place to do that. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can get all kinds of exclusive content at the $3 tier. You can also get a shout out and thank you on all of our shows at the $5 tier. You can support us on Twitch by subscribing to our channel at twitch.tv/The Whatnauts, and we would love to have you all join us for our live streams and talk with us in the chat. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug or something else, go to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we're back. A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters, especially those at the $5 tier. So thank you to Sam. We appreciate you a lot.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. It means a ton. Yeah. Cool things that we have been doing here on the review show, or at the Whatnauts, not just at the review show.
All of us. Everywhere.
Right, exactly. Here on the review show, last week we did season 2 of The Leftovers, which has been our most recent like end of the month special that we've been doing. But because of Spooky Month back in October, we moved that to the start of the month. So we covered The Leftovers season 2 here at the start of November. And then we will be covering the third and final season of that show here at the end of November. That was pretty neat. The season 2 definitely hooked me a lot more than season 1 did. That was very interesting indeed. So go check that out. I have been gone for the past 2 weekends on crossplay, so I have no idea what they've been talking about and all of that stuff. But we are in the midst of video game season. All sorts of games are coming out, like Forza Horizon 5, I think, is the new one. There's a new Pokemon game that's coming out next week. So yeah, I'm super excited about all of that stuff. Yeah, go check it out. We have yet to do our Eternals spoiler cast. I'll talk to you, Melissa, after the show about planning that, because I still want to do that. We'll figure that out. So be on the lookout for our Eternals spoiler cast as well on the Reactor Core. But there you go. Cool things that we've been up to here at the Whatnauts. That being said, I say we get into spoilers. Perfect. Here we are in spoiler territory. So the first thing I want to say is that I think when I mentioned that this was a 5-issue story, you were kind of surprised by that. I think you were expecting it to be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Right? Is that? Yeah.
For as much as I've heard this name mentioned over and over again, like in the like 7 or 8 years since it's come out, I thought it would have been like at least 8 to 12. It seemed that big.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like it could have been larger by at least 3 more issues to just explore things, right? But yeah, I think a good like 10 issue event would have been like perfect. Because yeah, there is a lot that's happening here, and there's characters that end up showing up for like a page, and it's like, I don't know who you are, but you're cool, and I don't understand what's happening here, and they just never mentioned again. It almost felt like this book, if you actually strip all that out and focus on what the story actually is, maybe could have been like 3 issues, right? Like if you strip all that extra stuff out. But there's so much happening in the world. Like it feels like they had an idea of a story that was very small and saw it as an opportunity to like, oh, this is our chance to like reset the universe, like do all of this thing, fix all these things that we want to, change all these things that we want to, but it's small, and that like that's not gonna sell. So we need to have a bigger world happening around it. So what if Aquaman is at war with Wonder Woman, and this, and Grifter is over here from the Wildstorm comics, and what is he doing there? That makes no sense. Yeah, and it's just like, what? Why is Man-Thing with teaming up with Lois Lane to join the Resistance over here? And it's just like, what is going on here? And it seemed like that was their plan of like, we'll have this small event, but to fill it all out, we'll have all of these like tie-ins and stuff. You can get the Batman tie-in, you can get the Flash tie-in, you can get the Wonder Woman tie-in stuff, and it would maybe make the event a much longer read and would give more context as to what's happening, but is also not necessary in a major way. Like they often do tie-ins that is like, oh yeah, it's ancillary stuff, right? You don't necessarily need to know this, but this almost felt like doubly unnecessary. Of like, that's just not the story you're telling here. Like, why is this even a thing? Did you feel a similar way when you saw all of these like weird things start coming in to play?
I feel like there's either too many things happen or not enough happen. The war between Wonder Woman and Aquaman, for instance, I think that's a great alternate universe hook. Barry lands in this other world where 2 friends that he knows are at war with each other, and they've decimated like all of Europe. What a great shock. What a great something has gone wrong here. Truly, I need to set this right for the good of Europe and the world and my 2 friends, Arthur and Diana. We spent a lot of time in that war, though. I could have done with less time spent in that war.
Agreed.
Like, compress this down, really narrow it down on like just Barry and his story, or make this a larger thing where we do spend more time with each of these individual plot hooks. Like the Superman part, I would follow like an entire issue that's just about this Superman in the context in which he exists now. But I also know that's taking away from Barry. This is Barry's story. You know, the most important secondary character, I guess, is the 2 sides of Batman. Him and Thomas Wayne, who's the Batman of this universe, because Joe Chill shot Bruce instead. He spends time with Thomas, and then at the end, sends a letter back home to Bruce, which is very sweet. Like, either narrow it down to just Barry and like one or two supporting characters like Batman, or blow it up and make it like it's 12 issues. We've got Barry as the core, but then we do spend like an issue with each of these side angles. Here's an issue just for Lois Lane. Here's an issue just for Hal Jordan. Where it is now in the middle, agree. Like I'm not sure if it works.
Yeah. It seems like they tried to do the best of both worlds, or have their cake and ate it too, and it just it ended up being a mess. But yeah, I think the animated movie, if I'm not mistaken, goes into a little bit more detail on the whole Batman thing in there. I think they pull from some of the tie-ins that you could pick up alongside this. So yeah, instead of Thomas and Martha being the ones shot and Bruce Wayne surviving to grow up to be Batman, it is Bruce who is shot and killed, and as a result, Thomas Wayne, he becomes Batman, and it's Martha who becomes the Joker, which is I think fascinating.
And I don't remember that being in the comic. Maybe I glossed over whatever.
It's not at all.
I think, or maybe it was like, okay, because it's in the animated version.
It's not right. It's not in that main event, which is what I was saying. They pulled in some details from these tie-ins stuff there.
Because I was reading it and I'm like, when Thomas is Batman, Martha's the Joker. Like it's a set pair. Like that's the alternate universe concept that I've heard of. And then I started second guessing myself. Like, I've seen a picture of her where she's the Joker. Was that fan art? What was that from? Because it's not in the comic.
In like 2014 when the animated movie came out. Because I specifically remember that. Like I had read this event and I was like, yeah, it's okay, it's fine, I guess. And yeah, when they announced that they were making this animated movie, of course, Batman sells. So they had to put this idea in there of like, but what if Martha Wayne became the Joker instead? And everyone on Tumblr just erupted of like, this is amazing, coolest thing DC has ever done in a million years. And
it is a neat idea to explore. I do really like this. Yeah, I like this alternate universe of the Wayne family where Thomas, he was evidently a doctor, and now as Wayne Enterprises has grown, I'm not even sure what Bruce's version of Wayne Enterprises does, but Thomas's version of Wayne Enterprises is like casinos and hotels. And I think it's supposed to give me the vibe that it's very seedy, but instead I'm like, no, I really want to see the casino hotel that Batman built. Show me what that is. I want to go there.
That would be amazing. Yeah, like there is some really, really interesting stuff. You also mentioned the Superman one.
Yes.
Which is, I think, worth talking about. That yes, a meteor did come down and hit Earth. It was the ship that Superman came on, but it landed in Metropolis instead. And as a result, like I think Thomas Wayne said it killed like 35,000 people. Because it hit in the city rather than like rural Kansas, right? And I forget who had, I don't remember if it was like Argus or someone else, but Superman was basically captured and imprisoned and studied for his whole life. And he was put in this underground facility.
He's a baby. He's not putting up a fight. They just took him out of his little space cradle, and he's been inside his entire life. Maybe you're right with that. Maybe he did fight back. He's a Kryptonian. I don't know what Kryptonian babies do. Maybe they have a very strong sense of self-protection. But he's just been this government test subject his entire life in this cell underground, and so he's never seen the sun, never gotten the energy of the sun's rays. So he's recognizable as Superman, like he's still got like the square jaw, he's still got like the floppy dark hair in the front.
Yeah.
But he is like, he's still got broad shoulders, you know, his build is still the same, but he is thin. He's like so thin and weak looking, practically emaciated just because he is no, I'm sure they're feeding him, but he needs sunlight. He's like a plant. He's nothing without sun, and he's so pale with these sunken eyes, and he doesn't know how to socialize with anyone. What a delightful thing to do with Superman.
Yeah. That's a really fascinating one, because I think one of the more famous like Elseworld stories is Superman Red Sun, which he lands in Russia. And so like he becomes this like communist superhero, and I think that's a really interesting one. But yeah, here's one where he still landed in the United States, but he landed in a city and was immediately taken and put in this underground facility where he might not know he has powers, because he like hasn't had the radiation of the sun, that yellow sun radiation, and so he's just stuck there, and he gets taken outside, and the first thing, like, he sees the sun, he sees the city. It's like right at that golden hour where the sky is just all sorts of like reds and purples and yellows, and he like the one word that he says is just beautiful, and then he's just like, well, I'm gonna fly away now, and he just like flies away, and they're just like, we needed you. Okay, he'll be back.
I feel like it would be an easier choice or a cooler choice to make the alternate version of Superman a bad guy. Make him a jerk. Make him a villain. Make him something kind of on the level of what Wonder Woman and Aquaman are in the story.
My entire life. How dare you? Blah blah blah. Right. That would be the thing that they could do.
Yeah, I like that instead of flipping the switch from good to bad, they flip the switch from strong to weak, and he's not good or bad. Like, he has no sense of justice and morals or immorals implanted in him. Like, he's just a being. He just like sleeps and eats and like walks around his little cell. He doesn't really know anything. So when he like gets out there in the world and he flies away, it's just because he's curious. Like, he doesn't really have a sense of, I need to help these people, because he doesn't know what help is. He just wants to go look at things.
Indeed. I liked that one a lot. And you do get to see a bit more of him. I remember, again, in the tie-in issues of like Superman and stuff like that, you do get to see what he does when he flies away, and like where he goes, and how and why he decides to then come back and help at the end. There, because like, you're right, he has no real foot in the game here. Like, he doesn't need to get involved here with all of this stuff, or to help Barry reset the universe somehow, but he eventually decides to come back and help at the end, and in those tie-ins you can see why he does that stuff. So
nice. I don't know how much.
Go ahead.
I don't know how much this upcoming Flash movie is going to pull from Flashpoint beyond Flash goes to an alternate universe, finds a different Batman who tries to save his mom. But I would love to see like a Henry Cavill that they just digitally reduce to this thin little ghost man. Like Skinny Steve at the beginning of Captain America.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. So something like that would be interesting if they do that. But we'll have to see what they do for the Flash movie. Another interesting character change that I wanted to mention briefly, to me, was Shazam. Instead of Billy being the only person, like, it's just him that transforms, it's like each there's multiple kids, and each kid in his like family here is like the representative of the like, this is the strength of Solomon, this is the speed of Mercury, and stuff like that. So when they say the magic word, they all combine into one being there, which is just I thought an interesting way to have that. It'd be an interesting challenge for all of those characters to then like stick around together. Like they have to be together at all times to say the magic word and then be this hero. I feel like that'd be an interesting challenge to explore. So I liked that a lot.
The Shazam stuff was some of the most confusing to me, just because my only exposure to Shazam is the movie, and I had no idea what was comics status quo for this group of characters. So when we go to this alternate universe, I don't know how alternate these kids are that I'm seeing. Because all I know is the movie, and I'm like, in the movie, like, they're different ages. They're like between 8 and 18, and in this book, like, seems like they're all very close to being the same age. And yeah, like they all like Voltron together, like all of them make up Shazam. It's not just Billy. And I didn't know like if that was a variant of the powers that was pre-existing in comics. I couldn't tell if anything was weird with these kids. I did like that they had a tiger. I hope that shows up in Shazam too.
Hopefully, yeah. I just started rewatching Young Justice, the cartoon, and yeah, there is a scene where he meets the tiger for the first time, and it's just like, oh, there he is, and then I just read him here in this book. But yeah, what you saw in that first movie is closer to what the actual thing is. Yeah.
It was nice to know that each of those kids has a comics counterpart, because I didn't know if like how many of them were invented for the movie, but no, all of them were there. Like they were different ages, but all of them were there.
Yeah, the whole like Marvel family is that's a big. They have before Shazam, his name was Captain Marvel before Marvel Comics sued them for the name. But yeah, there was like Mary Marvel and this Marvel, that Marvel, all sorts of stuff. They had a whole family there. But yeah, I just at least wanted to mention his character because I thought that was neat. But let's focus on the Flash for a bit, since he is the main character after all. With your, I guess, kind of general unfamiliarity with the Flash, what did you think of his story there and his whole thing?
First off, whenever I've seen Flash around, like in cartoons and stuff, or like on a comic book cover in a store, he's wearing his full outfit with like the hood on. And whenever he took the hood off, whenever he was just Barry, I was always surprised that he was blonde. I had to keep reminding myself, he's not supposed to look like Ezra Miller. I think Ezra Miller is the only Flash that looks like Ezra Miller. I think all the other Barrys are blonde. This is normal.
Yeah. What's his name on the CW is like dirty blonde, light brown-ish hair, I think. But yeah. In the comics, he's blonde, and generally speaking, I think especially in older comics, Barry I think always just felt kind of flat to a lot of people. Where when and then when Wally steps up and becomes Kid Flash, and then the Flash after Crisis, that's what a lot of people my age or our age, they kind of grew up with him being the Flash, and he had a lot more of a personality and more angst, and man, I really loved the Flash. How will I be as good as him and stuff? So he had his own things to deal with there. But I think they have worked to make Barry have more of a personality and stuff like that. But he, I think, can end up, no pun intended, running into a lot of the same issues and the same stories over and over again. Like, do I go back and save my mom or no? Okay, what about this time? Do I go back and save my mom or no? Do I go back and save my mom from that one time that I saved my mom, but actually did this and that? And it's just, it's a big mess of things like that. But I do have to say, I think this is at its core a good Flash story. Like what the actual like kernel, that actual like what could have been a 2 or 3 issue story, right? It is a good Flash story of, this is like the thing that made him become the hero that he is today. And he just so desperately wants to get his mom back. Like he misses her, and he, as I guess we are in spoilers, so by the end of the book you learn that it's not Professor Zoom who did this, but it was Barry who messed it all up. He was the one that went back and saved his mom and did all of this stuff, and that one change just spiraled everything else out. But he did this one almost subconsciously. He wanted it so bad, and then didn't remember that he did it. Like, he was blacked out, or he was asleep, or who knows what. He was sleep running, if that's a thing. But that I think really screams, or not personality, but that is a major part of his character, just how much he cares about his family and people that he now has in his like new family and stuff there. So he's a good guy. He likes to help.
He's nice. In the animated version, there's a fun cut. He keeps flashing back and forth between like the memories of the world that he's come from, where he's married to, is it Iris West is his love interest? He's married to Iris. He's got this job. His life is like this, but now he's in this new world where Iris is married to somebody else. He's single. He seemingly just hangs out with his mom, doesn't have other social contact. There's a very fun flash where it goes from him having a nice dinner with Iris to him having a nice dinner with his mom.
That's funny.
I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but it is.
I in a weird way, I wonder if that's a weird, like, if that's a weird Oedipus like complex thing here. If there can be like some kind of comparison made, that how much is Iris like his mom here in this situation? Is he really just in love with his mom? Who knows?
I don't know. I think it was just that, like I said, it seems like this is the only person he spends his time with. It's like, oh, you wish you had more time with your mom? What if it was only time with your mom? Dinner with mom every week. Do you ever go out to dinner? Do you ever have a date? No, only mom.
He's a simple man, you know? He knows what he likes and he sticks to
it.
He
goes dinner with his mom.
Good old boy.
And he just like goes down to the police station and checks fingerprints or whatever.
Yeah. It's a good story at its heart, and it seems like because of all the extra padding that this story had, he really does jump to conclusions very fast, and it's just like, by God, I've solved it. It's Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom. He did all of this because screw him. He hates me.
He must. It could have only been Eobard Thawne. I love that name, and And somebody asks him, what kind of name is that? And he's like, it's
from the
a future name. He's from like the 25th century. And I hope that like there are like a couple people who read this and they're like, Eobard is a pretty cool name. I'm going to name my kid that. And slowly after time, we do get, every generation, we get a couple more Eobards until we do get to the 25th century. And it's like, yeah, there's 2 Eobards in my class.
Is Eobard here? Here. Oh, it looks like we have 2 of you. Okay. Eobard
My son's
Smith?
name is also Eobard.
Yeah.
I like him. I like when like the costume pops out of his ring, and I was thinking like, oh, maybe he is a Flash in this universe, but he's like a drastically different Flash. Like he doesn't know who his superhero or his alter identity are in this world. I thought maybe like that's what the difference was. Instead, the costume pops out of his ring, and he's like, "This was planted here. He did this. He's taunting me."
Yeah. Which is a good clue. Like, right? It is a good like red herring of like, wait, how did that ring get in there? Why does he have that? Which is never really explained.
No.
But it is just the one big like, see, it's Eobard, it's Professor Zoom, it's the yellow outfit. The details that really made me laugh. There were 2 details in this that made me laugh here. One is that when he's teaming up with Batman and they finally decide to like go out there and I think they're about to search for Superman, and he's like, well, I could put this yellow suit on, but I don't really want to do that. And then Batman's like, well, I don't want to give you one of my suits because that'd be weird. Yeah. And then Barry, he mentions that he could tear the suit down thread by thread. Like he goes into like the weird, it's not super long. Yeah, it's not super long, but just the way he chooses to describe the way he could dismantle this suit. It's just weird of like, I could dismantle this on a molecular level thread by thread till it's infinity. And then I could rebuild its structure to have the right colors and do this. And it's just like, what? Like you don't need to say any of that. But then he decides to just make a new suit with things that he found in the Batcave, like chemicals and stuff in the Batcave.
Big pennies.
And it's just an exact replica of his suit. It's just a red suit. And it's just like, oh, okay, fine, I guess. You
had a chance to reinvent yourself, Barry, and you don't want to do it.
I mean, it might have been a slightly different design, but it's still like, it's still recognizable as like, okay, that is like your main suit here. And then the second detail that made me laugh is that this Batman doesn't have a bat computer. He has one computer, and it is like this old clunker of a machine. And Barry's just he's like, this is the only computer you have? Like, this is it? Like, you barely have the internet on this thing. I was like, oh my God,
love that they're
amazing.
Like, okay, if this is Batman's dad, who's the new Batman, he's going to operate like a dad.
Yeah. It's like, you're still on Netscape Navigator. Okay. Well, I'm going to go see if I can find Cyborg or whoever can just get me this stuff instantly. But yeah, just the fact that he had this like old school computer in this.
Yeah.
Funny.
Entirely beige. Speaking of Cyborg, he's another one of the recurring supporting characters in this story. I couldn't recognize a way in which he was very different. Again, knowing very little about the Justice League. Until I turned on the cartoon version, and like maybe there was just a better sense of scale that I could grab onto when I could see things moving on the screen. But he's huge. Is that the only difference? Just that he's very big. He's like so big, he's almost an Optimus Prime sized.
I mean, he's always very big because he was a football player. Is the
yes
thing.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I think in this, I guess he was bigger. I didn't really take note of that, but yeah, he does seem very close to who he already was, which maybe just implicates that his story really has nothing to do with the Flash, which then it makes his inclusion in this story just like weird. Of like, well, if he's not really changed, like why? Like
he's just
why
like
is he the like
foot and a half taller? Yeah,
yeah. He's the one that's like trying to gather the heroes up to be like, come on, guys, we got to do something about Aquaman and Wonder Woman, please. And yeah, he's the only one that's just like, we need to fight back, but there really isn't any kind of like super major noticeable change to him there. So it's just,
he's just larger.
It's just strange. Yeah.
I want an Elseworlds where Dr. Stone looks at his injured boy. He's like, I'm going to make him a cyborg, but his only image of like any sort of a robot man is Optimus Prime. And he's like, I guess I'm just going to make him that big. I'm going to make him Optimus Prime sized. I just want to see just like an unnecessarily large cyborg
body and a small head.
It's got to be because
his brain inside it somehow.
No, I want it to still be like there's human parts on the outside. Like you can still see the parts of his body that survived that car accident. But just any part of him that is robot is just huge. It's just big.
There you go. Yeah, so I also do have to say that if you liked this version of Batman, this character does come back in some other stories. This is one of the things I think is really interesting about this story in particular, that Flashpoint, despite not being a great book by itself per se, it was very important for that transition into the New 52, where they tried to reboot the entire universe. It failed. The idea was that there were kind of these 3 different continuities, which wasn't necessarily true, and that they were merging them into one big thing, and we're just, relaunching the DC universe. Everything was supposed to start with a brand new number 1. I think most of them did, except 2 or 3 books. Everything was supposed to start from square one, where like you would get all new origin stories, all that stuff. There was no more like continuity. Like you didn't need to know 600 issues of Batman to figure out what's going on. However, with Batman, as well as like Green Lantern, they didn't do that. Like they just continued the stories that they were already telling and just completely ignored this whole thing. We're like, yes, we're relaunching. But then in the Justice League book, like Batman had also never met Green Lantern yet, or he didn't know who, like all of these characters hadn't met yet. Like the Justice League was just starting. And so like everyone was confused. I'm just like, this doesn't match up at all. Like what's going on here? And yeah, the whole thing ended up being a mess. The character at the end of the book, when he is setting things right, and there's that big like 2-page splash page thing, and there's this character in the center that's kind of this like maybe godlike character you're not sure in this book, that is like, there's 3 timelines and only you can fix it, Barry, you must do this. Her name is Pandora, and she was supposed to play a bigger role in the New 52, but because of how bad everything did, they just kind of dropped that plot line there. So everything that this book sets up, they just kind of left and was just like, well, I guess that didn't work. And eventually, when they finally decided to end the New 52, they announced this book called DC Rebirth, which was like an 80-page, like one-shot issue that explained some things. And to be honest, as a big fan of the crisis stuff and the post-crisis continuity, that issue was phenomenal. The way they wove all the continuity in and basically made this a giant apology for everything from Flashpoint through the New 52, and the way they explained it was brilliant. It was awesome. And then they relaunched all the books, but it wasn't a reboot. It was, long story short, let's say the New 52 was someone messing with reality, if that makes sense. So all of those stories happened, but the idea that like this is brand new continuity was someone messing with them. Like that was not actually true. So all of the DC Rebirth stuff kind of reintroduced that old continuity into things there, which means that yes, you can read these big long stories and stuff, and it will make sense. It's still the same Batman and love, still the same Wonder Woman and love. But then they also was like, okay, we're gonna do that, but we're also gonna start to introduce more legacy characters and stuff like that. So things can change, right? And they don't need to be stuck on the same Batman, the same Superman, the same Flash, the same, all that stuff. So they did some interesting stuff because of this story, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's still important in that way. But yeah, it's a weird book. I like what they were trying to do. I like you said, I think it's both too much and not enough in a weird way. It just didn't really know what it needed to be.
I like it emotionally. The final scene is very touching, where Barry's back in his own universe. He goes to his living Bruce, goes to his Batcave and is talking to him and says, when I was in that universe, I kept losing my memories of this world. But now that I'm back here, I can still remember everything I lived over there crystal clear. I remember seeing my mom at the age she would have lived to, and sitting down and having dinner with her and getting a hug from her. And he's like, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means it didn't totally erase if something's broken. And Bruce is like, maybe it's just a gift. Just take it, Barry. Enjoy that time with your parents. And then Barry gives him the letter that Thomas wrote to him. And it's nice to see Batman take his mask off, because he's, he knows he's going to cry. And it's probably hard to cry in the Batman mask. That's not what it's made for. Probably not absorbent. Probably dishonorable to the mask itself. And also,
probably
you
somehow
imagine that
more
he's
goggles, so if he cries in them, it just wells up in there and gets stuck in his eye, oh god, I can't see.
It just runs rivulets through his mask, to make
Somehow,
up with some Batman have. But also, you imagine that he's if I am reading these words from my father, let me read it, face to face, his words and my face, Bruce's face, the face he remembers before either of us died.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impactful for Bruce, because he's never gotten to talk to his parents and stuff like that. So he, on one hand, gets to have this brand new note from his dad, who loves him so much that yes, he became Batman instead. And so there is that touching connection of just getting to hear loving words from your father one more time. But then to also have the connection that they're both Batman in this thing is also interesting, or maybe even a sad thing, to know that that's the route that his dad chose as well. to see that I chose the same thing that my dad did, but I was hoping to make it better for them. But there he is stuck in the same thing that I'm doing, right? Yeah, it's fascinating. And eventually in the Rebirth, so in that one shot DC Rebirth comic, that was also kind of the jumping off page for a number of different stories. When we read through the first 2 volumes of Superman, that is where this launched out of. Because there was that thing about like one version of Superman was dead in that one thing, and this and that, like all of that stuff was happening when that DC Rebirth thing launched. But one of the mysteries that it introduced is that in the Batcave, Batman finds a button that was like buried in the rock, and he's not sure how it got there. But the button was the comedian's button from Watchmen. It's the one with the blood stain. Yeah. And so a few volumes into the Rebirth titles of both Batman and the Flash, they team up to investigate that button, and eventually that takes them back to the Flashpoint universe and this and that and all sorts of stuff. So if I don't remember off the top of my head if Bruce and Thomas get to meet. I think they do, but there is some more touching moments there. They also have their differences and stuff like that. So yeah, there. If you want to see more of that character or that universe, the Batman and the Flash stuff in DC Rebirth is where you can find them next. So.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
Good to know.
I don't know if I have much else to say on Flashpoint. I guess real quick, how did you like the animated movie compared to the comic? Did you like one more than the other?
Animated movie, it doesn't have Element Woman, which I found disappointing. I don't know anything about her, but I like her energy.
I mean, she also like didn't really do anything in the book. She just shows up and wants to be helpful.
I understand why she's not there. It makes sense. I just thought she was fun. I wanted to see her again. Wanted to know what she would sound like. I think it does a good job of kind of clarifying the happenings of the time travel antics. Like there's a line that Eobard says in the movie that I don't remember being in the comics, where he says, if something goes really fast, it breaks the sound barrier. You went so fast, you broke the time barrier. And there's aftershocks that went out in all directions. And that's why your choice to go back and save your mom affected things from before that incident happened. Like a Superman crashing to Earth. It flashed back like that far. So I think it's a little clearer if you watch the animated version.
That makes sense. Yeah, that it seems like they had the opportunity to then take all of that material and kind of refine it into something that was like, okay, how can we make this for people who maybe have only watched the animated stuff? Because after they made Flashpoint, they kind of did a similar thing with their movies, where all of the DC Comics movies then were kind of put into one universe and stuff. Like they started with Justice League War, then there's something else. There's like a whole Justice League like War trilogy. I don't remember what they're called, but that first Justice League War movie covers like the first volume or two of the Justice League comics from the New 52 and stuff like that. So there you go. Cool. I have not seen the animated version of that, but Maybe one day I will get to that.
It's on HBO Max. It was nice to know that I could immediately, very easily access this movie and dozens of other DC animated movies.
Indeed. Okay. I think with that, we should check out Bingo. I think it's about time for us to look in on that. Let's see here. I need to look at my desktop and Bingo. Open up my Bingo card. We've been playing review show Bingo here every week on the show. With different movie and comic and entertainment tropes. Did we get any characters hit through a building? Do you remember that?
None that I recall, unfortunately.
Neither do I. We almost had death by electrocution if the Flash had died from that lightning bolt that hit him there. But we did not get to see that. No robots blamed for murder. The only one I think I can argue for is detective who makes the case personal. The Flash isn't necessarily a police detective, but he is a forensic scientist. He realizes this is not the universe he should be in, and so he he is the only one that seems to remember both of these things. So it is personal in that sense, but I don't know if that's the spirit of what we're going for.
It's not a detective working on a personal case. It's a detective working on an unrelated case that they project themselves onto and make personal.
How about Batman, though? The Batman of this world's greatest detective is the nickname for him, right? And because of his son, because the Flash comes from a universe where his son is still alive, he then steps up to help me. Yes, I will help because of this thing. So I feel like that's personal for him.
But again, I think it's too directly personal. It is literally personal. I think the spirit of this bingo square is a detective working on a murder case, and he's like, that person that was murdered, my daughter's that same age. This could happen to her. That's what we were thinking of.
That is exactly what we were thinking of.
Yeah.
So I'll hold off on that one, which means I didn't get anything again on bingo.
I didn't either.
But you still have 6 bingos, and I only have 1. It's laughable at this point. It's laughable that I only have 1, and it's worked out. So I have multiple spots that's almost, and I can't get them.
I know.
This game is rigged. Okay. Anyways, recommendations is the next thing that we need to do. So Melissa, for people that may have liked this, what else should they check out?
I guess if you have only read the comic, check out the animated movie. It's a nice time.
Sure, yeah.
I really don't know enough about similar things to recommend them. I'm just like, the Shazam movie's good. If you haven't seen the Snyder Cut, check it out. There's more Flash in it. There's a scene where he steals a single hot dog and puts it in his pocket that I think is very important that people see.
There you go. What about time travel stories in general? Do you have ones that might fit with that?
One of the reasons I did pick this is that I do like stories where somebody wakes up and they're like, these things are different. This isn't my world. But I don't know what my favorite one of those is. It's just a trope that I like in general. I'll have to think on it.
Do you have a couple examples?
There's the episode of the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror where Homer makes a time machine out of the toaster, and he can't figure out how to get back to his home timeline. And he's zapping through all these timelines, and he goes to one where it's his world, but it's ideal. Like, the family is rich. They live in a mansion. The children are so well-behaved and polite. He doesn't have to deal with Marge's sisters, who he hates. And he's like, wow, I love this. I'm so happy to live in this world. I'm just going to stay here. Do you guys have any donuts? And Marge is like, Homer, what is a donut? And he's like, no, I'm out of here. Not the perfect world. And he runs back into his time bubble to escape to somewhere else. And then the second he leaves, it starts raining. Like, donuts are falling from the sky outside. And somebody says, oh, look, it's raining again. I feel like I've talked about that before when I've been asked to name something I like in a time travel story. It's just that one episode of Treehouse of Horror.
Good stuff, though. Good stuff. Okay, so if you want to read some more good Flash stories and stuff like that, I would recommend checking out, especially if you are interested in the like DC movie universe. I would check out Crisis on Infinite Earths, because that's where they got the scene in Batman vs Superman where the Flash appears to Batman and he's like, oh, yeah, that's from Crisis on Infinite Earths.
You're right. I was expecting that to happen at some point in this story, and then I got to the end. By the time I got to the end, I forgot that I was waiting for him to say, like, we need to find Lois. She's the key.
It's like two bookends, right? Where like Crisis is the thing that started this continuity, and Flashpoint is the thing that ended this continuity. So there you go. Yeah, I would say check that out. That one, I will give you a warning, though, is very dense. It has a million characters that you probably won't know, but it sets things up for the future, kind of like what this book did. If you are interested in more Flash stuff, I would say check out some Wally West stories. Mark Waid was one of the prominent writers on Wally West. I think like late 80s, early 90s, I think is around when he started. And he has a really, really good run on the character. Wally wins the lottery, gets all sorts of money, and then loses it all, and all sorts of stuff.
Oh no!
Yeah, there is. God, I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I'm just gonna describe this like random Flash comic to you, which I know is incredibly unhelpful, but
sure.
It's a good story. So the Flash ends up on an airplane that is crashing and has to like figure out how to save like all these people. Or now I'm unsure if he has to save the whole plane, or if someone he and someone else fell out of a plane and he has to figure out a way to save them, and he can't fly and stuff like that. So he is like midair, has to like think about all of this stuff. Yeah, there is some good Flash stories to check out. But to be honest, I would say skip ahead a bit and go to that DC Rebirth. That might be a little overwhelming in terms of continuity, but will set up again a really, really damn good Flash run of the comics, written by Joshua Williamson. That is the run of the comics that really made me fall in love with the character. I've read some old stuff, and it was like, okay, it's fine, it's good. But Joshua Williamson's run on the Flash has been phenomenal. So please go check it out. Flash Rebirth volumes 1 and beyond, all of that stuff is where I would say to go to. So there you go. Those nice. Are my recommendations.
Okay.
Melissa, it's time for pitches.
It is. It's pitch time. I have 3 anime movies for you.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, I don't pitch as much anime. I thought I'd try and stretch my limits and see what I could find. Which was a little difficult because sometimes I'd go to a streaming platform and I'd go to the anime section and it wouldn't differentiate between TV shows and movies. So I had to like click on every one to see what it was.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Mm-hmm. All right, pitch number 1. You and I have never talked about any Hayao Miyazaki works together.
Okay.
In the original incarnation of the show, just called The Whatnauts, you and your friend Paul talked about Princess Mononoke. And in the first couple episodes of the review show, before I jumped on, you talked about the Castle of Cagliostro. So you've covered him before, but I haven't. So I thought I'd throw in a Miyazaki, and I thought I'd throw in one of my personal favorites, Kiki's Delivery Service. This was the first anime I can ever remember seeing when I was like 6 years old. I really loved it, but I haven't sat down and watched it in a long time. So in this anime feature, 13-year-old Kiki moves to a seaside town with her talking cat Gigi to spend a year alone in accordance with her village's tradition for witches in training. After learning to control her broomstick, Kiki sets up a flying courier service and soon becomes a fixture in the community. But when the insecure young witch begins questioning herself and loses her magic abilities, she must overcome her self-doubt to get her powers back.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I often find myself getting this one confused with The Girl Who Leapt Through Time for some reason. I don't know why. There's no be like, oh, it's the same actor that did the thing. It's nothing like that. Just for some reason in my head, like those two are just like right there.
Those will happen. I don't know when The Girl Who Leapt Through Time is from. I feel like that's a fairly recent movie, and I think Kiki's from like 1989.
There you go.
All right, pitch number 2. When I was looking through the old episode archives for the Whatnauts podcast, because I wanted to remember what you had already covered, this is a movie I could have sworn you did. I looked through the list twice to make sure that I wasn't missing it or something. I'm flabbergasted you didn't get around to covering it. How about Akira? I offer this less for myself and more for the Whatnauts as a legacy. Like the Whatnauts should talk about Akira at some point. I don't know why
they have
you're right.
Post. I guess
you got
you
the poster back
on
there.
Screen there.
You're
but it's
Mr.
back there.
Cyberpunk. It's a pseudo cyberpunk story. Yeah, this feels like something you would have covered at some point, and I was shocked to find out that you hadn't. So I thought, well, I guess I'll throw it in there.
I've always wanted to do the manga because I know the manga has so much more than the movie. Like the movie,
too long.
Like the manga is what, like 7 or 8 like big volumes, whereas the movie maybe only covers like a small portion of that condensed in. So but yeah, that is a good one. That's a classic.
Yeah, and if you don't know what we're talking about, the plot of Akira is in 1988, the Japanese government drops an atomic bomb on Tokyo after ESP experiments on children go awry. In 2019, 31 years after the nuking of the city. We should have done this in 2019. We were sleeping on it. Kaneda, a bike gang leader, tries to save his friend Tetsuo from a secret government project. He battles anti-government activists, greedy politicians, irresponsible scientists, and a powerful military leader until Tetsuo's supernatural powers suddenly manifest. A final battle is fought in Tokyo Olympiad, exposing the experiment secrets.
There you go. Yeah, that one is a great film. That was a huge, just like technical achievement for animation in Japan back then. So good stuff.
Pitch number 3 is a movie I don't know anything about. I just found it when I was scrolling through Crunchyroll trying to find movies. This is a 1991 film called Robot Carnival.
Robot Carnival. Okay. I'm intrigued.
This is it's an anthology film. 8 fantasy segments by Japanese filmmakers show variations on the theme of robots. The film consists of, oh, wait a minute. One of these synopses I picked says 8. One of them says 9. I don't know. Maybe there's like a framing device. But it's 8 or 9. So the film consists of 8 or 9 shorts directed by different well-known directors, many of whom started out as animators with little to no directing experience. Each has a distinctive animation style and story ranging from comedic to dramatic storyline. I don't know any specific plot elements. I don't know what any specific segments are, what the stories are, what they look like. I looked at the names of directors. I didn't personally recognize any of them, and they weren't, the list I was looking at didn't give credits like this guy, who you know from this thing. So I truly have no idea what we're in for here. I just saw
mystery
robots.
Robot grab bag.
Yeah. Who knows what you're going to get?
Okay. I don't know. I think I want to go with Kiki's Delivery Service.
Oh, really? I know you like your robots. I know you like your cyberpunk.
I sure do. But yeah, especially if we haven't really covered many Miyazaki stuff on here.
Well, you've covered a sufficient amount. I just haven't gotten a chance at it.
Yeah, but we can always have some more in there. Let's throw another one in. So I say we go with that. And yeah, I guess it's one of those things of like, since I always mix that one up with The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and I don't know why, I don't know if I've seen this one. I've seen one of them.
Oh.
But I don't know which one it was, and it was years ago. So I don't
which one is about a
all.
little witch girl in a purple dress flying bread around, shipments of bread on her broomstick?
That's the thing. It was so long ago that I don't remember. Like, I just remember something about the girl with like maybe magical powers or something. I don't know. Which I think is both of them. So
okay. All right.
Yeah,
we're going to watch Kiki's Delivery Service.
Hell yeah.
And I don't want you to complain to me that you weren't able to cross off robot blamed for murder, because I offered you 8 or 9 possible robot stories. And you turned your back.
I know that I could have possibly gotten that one. But we'll go with Kiki's Delivery Service. That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Indeed.
Right.
So that is what we will do for next week. And then if I'm not mistaken, it's the week after that is when we do season 3 of The Leftovers. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Real quick turnaround there.
Quick one indeed.
Which is another reason why I picked movies this week, so that we could have more time to start watching Leftovers.
Oh yeah, good stuff. And then once we're into December, I'm sure we'll get into our Christmas picks here, end of the year holiday picks, stuff like that. I might actually see if I can find something that's specifically not Christmas and do a different holiday. That'd be interesting.
Or something that's just December. Something that's
that's
just
fine
winter
too.
time.
Yeah, that's fine too.
I will tell you, a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Suspiria, I mentioned the movie Phantom of the Paradise. That's a movie that takes place in December and is nothing remotely Christmassy about it.
There you go. Our December movie picks might just be December themed. Right. Good stuff. Well, Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, show where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kids shows you feel like only you remember. I'm not sure what our most recent episode has been at this point. I think at some point soon, Beast Wars? Transformers Beast Wars?
Hell yeah, good pick. I used to have some of those action figures. Good stuff.
There's a cheetah guy. There's others.
Indeed. If you guys want to stay up to date with me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter. And if you guys want to follow all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So go like, share, subscribe. That would help us out a ton to spread the word. We would appreciate it a lot. So thank you for checking this out. And we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.